You ready?
I'm ready.
Gotcha. All right, so first actual question, can I get you to say and spell your first and last
Sure.
name and what you're running for?
So Elliott, Elliott, Harding, Harding. I'm running for state senate in the 25th district of Virginia
Who are you running
as an independent.
Yeah.
What makes you run for independent out of having multiple?
Ultimately, we are hyperpolarized, and people turn their ears off if someone's got an R or D next to their name. There's so many people in this district that are unwilling to consider the issues, and instead they get put in their corners. And as an independent, I hope to be able to cut through that noise and be able to actually talk about the issues so that people's ears open up and they hear what's going on. I also find myself to the left of the incumbent and to the right of the incumbent on different issues. And so I think that it's at a time where people can unify behind an independent voice. I also think Virginia needs that. I think that the party control is too much in Richmond, and being able to go in and stand on my own 2 feet as an independent, I think gives me the flexibility to truly represent the district as a whole.
Why are you running?
I'm running because, again, we've had an incumbent here for too long that I think there needs to be change. The district has changed and the issues have changed over time. I personally don't think the incumbent currently represents the masses of the 25th district, and that's outside partisanship. There are people that consider themselves very progressive Democrats who have would have a problem with his record if there was a challenger to expose that. And there are plenty of people on the traditional GOP side, obviously, that would find issue with him as well, given his history with the Democrat Party. So I think I'm running in order to provide that counter voice, a new energy, a new perspective. I think that we have a history of problems in this state, and it requires some new innovative solutions, and I think that I can provide that.
What are your innovative solutions?
Well, it depends on the issue area that you want to discuss, but in the criminal justice reform realm, my first bill would be to end capital punishment. And the reason I believe that is because I find it to be the ultimate and most arrogant form of government power. And it's a final punishment, and it's something that I think we have seen just in the last 2 days, 2 men exonerated from lifetime murder charges in Oklahoma and I believe Idaho. It's something that I think there are innocent people behind bars, and we know that for a fact. And for the state to have that ultimate authority to be able to take somebody's life, how can I preach small government and liberty-minded views while still maintaining something like that on the books? That's innovative, not just in substance, but also in symbolically. Because once we take that away, we can look at things like ending cash bail, drug reform, sentencing reform, re-entry programs, and that's just in one sphere. I also believe that we should innovate the way that we fund our education system. It's currently being done through real estate taxes, and then a portion which district people have based on where they live. That is an antiquated view in a modern system of where people should be able to go to school. It also unfairly and disproportionately impacts the poor and keeps people pigeonholed where they don't get that equal access to opportunity over time.
What do you bring to the table from your experience as a congressional staffer?
I've seen how the sausage is made. I was a legislative director and counsel on the Hill in Washington, D.C. I understand what it means to try to work with the staff and the members themselves to actually craft policy. It's a lot harder than people think to be able to get people on board. I also know what it means to whip up or be whipped by various interest groups to coalesce behind a particular bill. And I also know what it means to try to tackle a problem with an innovative solution that's in line with my principles. Up there we crafted, I personally was able to craft and get multiple sponsors in Congress behind a bill to fix student loan debt and actually reduce the deficit along the way. So I think that there are a lot of ways that I can work, having had my experience in legislative crafting, and I also, through that experience, got to meet a lot of people across parties through Virginia and other staffs and other districts. So I know what it would mean to be able to work with folks like that in Richmond as well.
And then you're just announcing your campaign in July. You have 4 months until the actual election. How hard and how aggressive will your campaign be be over the next 4 months?
It's going to be very difficult, but it's not going to stop. Okay, and so I'm going to be knocking on doors. It's going to be a constant town hall. You can go ahead and consider yourself. If you don't think you have the opportunity in the 25th district to come see me and to ask me questions and make up your mind and have a contrast, then that's going to be on you, because I'm going to be everywhere. I'm going to be in Albemarle, Charlottesville, and Nelson 70% of the week, and in Rockbridge, Bath, Allegheny, and Highland 30% of the week. That's how the electoral breakdown breaks down, and as far as voters, and that's where I'm going to be. I'm going to put a lot of mileage on my car, and it's going to be a shoe leather campaign. But I also believe from a funding component, it's going to be people-driven. I don't expect huge donors and lobbyists to be coming in here pouring in money. That's probably something my incumbent will be looking at, and ultimately this is going to be a ground-up mission.
As a state senator in 2021, you'll be participating in the redistricting process. How do you think that process is broken, and how would you fix it?
It's fundamentally broken. I believe I would support the independent commission amendment that has been pushed through in one session. I would support that again so that it ultimately does get changed. We live in one of the most gerrymandered districts possible, and our current state senator had a hand in redrawing that. He and his northern neighbor, Emmett Hanger, live relatively close to each other, yet they redrew the line so that they didn't have any competition. If you look at the district, we go from Albemarle to West Virginia, and the only place that connects is in Rockbridge and Nelson County, in a little aspect of that county. It is a gerrymandered district. I'm against that. It disenfranchises people, and again, I would support the current proposal of an independent commission.
Given the makeup of the General Assembly right now, how would you measure that? Both parties are really close when it comes to who has power.
Well, right now, last session, if you're talking about the gerrymandering question.
More so General Assembly as a whole.
Oh, as a whole? Well, it depends on the issues. Running as an independent, I'm not beholden to any particular caucus. So as the issues come to the floor, I'll be cracking the whip on staff and reading all the bills myself and making sure that I fall in line with where the district as a whole is concerned on any particular issue. So if you're asking, am I going to conference with the Republicans or the Democrats, I was told that I would not have support from either party as a whole, given that the Republicans think this district is outside of the norm and the Democrats have done their best to insulate the incumbent. So as an independent, I have the autonomy to be able to stand on behalf of the district as a whole rather than breaking for one particular party or the other.
What is your motivation?
My motivation is 29 years of seeing a lot of people get broken down by the system. My motivation is my personal experience of walking in to the visiting rooms in prisons and seeing families that have been torn apart and forget the men and women that have lost their right to vote. It's the mothers and the sons and the cousins and the siblings and the children who grow up without families because of overregulation and overzealous government. Criminal justice reform is where overregulation and overgovernment comes to the streets, and ultimately we have to start there if we're going to walk back the size and scope and influence of government along the way.
The last independent in the General Assembly was Lacey Putney. He sat there for almost 60 years. Do you plan on staying there that long, or do you believe in term limits?
I certainly hope not. No, I don't. As far as term limits are concerned, I don't believe in them at this level necessarily. We have a citizen legislature, and I think that's different than D.C. D.C. is fundamentally different. They're career politicians in the sense that that's their full-time job. In Virginia, you're supposed to go back home after session and earn your living. And so term limits in that regard I don't necessarily agree with, but I do think 30 years in public office might be a little too long for the incumbent right now, so that's why I'm trying to provide a challenge in that regard. And I'll also note there are other independents running this cycle. Joe Morrissey has an independent challenging him down south of Richmond. And I think he's got a good shot as well. So I'm trying to bring that different, energetic, younger perspective and aggression to this race.